Hello viewers, this is Mithul here. Today we are going to cover up the module number 4.4, right? This is for DDL triggers, in which we will be covering about the 4.4.1, which is server scope, and then the second one is the database scope. So let's get started. Now, what are the DDL triggers? Okay, what do we mean by the DDL triggers? So DDL triggers are the basically events which gets triggered when user executes any of the DDL commands. Okay, DDL commands like create, alter, and drop that we learned in the earlier session, right? So just revisit in case you haven't seen to that, right? So to understand like in more detail, like what all kind of DDL events which are associated with the DDL commands, to see to that there is a Microsoft great documentation Microsoft has. So let us just go to that documentation and let us have a quick view of that, so you can understand like what all DDL event groups are there and the DDL events which may get triggered on that. So the first one is this DDL event groups. So in the DDL event groups, the parent type here is where you will see the parent type in the form of code, and by the category, if you want to say like for the server level and for the database level, these two are the consolidated kind of an events. Okay, so this is like a parent type. Let's say just refer to this. Okay, so DDL server level events, let's just copy and find it. So where is it located? Yeah, here. So here if you see like what is the parent type to that one is, it has a parent type as 10,001, right? And what is the type for this, how do we say to that? Yeah, what is the type for that one is, yeah, we just got it right. Yeah, so 10,002 is what we have, right? So now if we have to check all those database, the DDL server level events, right? Then what we need to do is we need to check for 10,002 as a string here on this page, right? And then find out what all events are covered under the DDL server level events. Okay, so to check that, if you see like all of these are like various kind of events, separate events which you may use in the trigger, right? For a particular command of DDL, right? That you can use. Now here it is little bit confusing to you maybe, because it's like in a single combined list, right? So to separate that out, if you have to go by specific to the server level and the database level events, or based on the particular scope, if you want to go, then what we can where we can go is there is another page which is the reference, right? The DDL events. What it may show us is it may separate both the kind of scope level events in the form of the DDL commands. Okay, so it will become very easy for you to understand what all kind of DDL commands will be covered under which kind of a scope. Say like here in this case, like the database scope level DDL statements, what all DDL statements are there under database scope, then you can go through this list. Okay, so this is the list to that. And then if you want to go by the server level scope DDL statements, then it is also listed down here. Okay, so both these links I am giving in the like the video for your latest reference. So let's just go back to the code and understand. Now server scope triggers. Now how those server scope triggers are fired, right? So server scope triggers we understood now, like at a server level events whichever is getting triggered. So based on this particular server level command, like the DDL command that you execute, then that respective command will trigger a DDL event, and that DDL event which will get triggered, that will give a call to this scope level trigger. Okay, so let's just understand like how to drop such kind of a trigger. Okay, so this is a kind of server level trigger. So if we have to remove that, for that there is a system catalog view. For that, the server level, like the system catalog view is there called the server triggers, in which all the server level triggers are getting stored. We can also save the database level triggers as well, but still, just for this example, we are considering this server level triggers are covered up under here. So now we will check here, like if it is any, if there is any trigger with this name is present, then just go and drop them, right? And the scope of that, this is very important. You need to write down this keyword on all server. Okay, this is the kind the reserved keywords, you can say. So this is the server level scope. Because of that, we need to add this keyword, right? Now let us just understand how to create that. So as per the, this was the old syntax to remove the trigger. Okay, now as per the new syntax, the condensed one, which just directly requires a single line command, which is like drop trigger if exist, and then the trigger name on all server. Okay, so it will remove the trigger if there is any trigger existing there. Now to create this kind of trigger, what is the syntax? Create or alter, both are both of this can be combined. Like if you want to create or you want to alter the existing trigger, then you can use this command together, or you can use them individually as well. So here what we are creating is a new trigger we are creating. The scope of that one is on all server. So the existing server is the scope of that, and for which kind of events you want to raise this trigger is what you will mention up in the form of events over here. Okay, if you want to mention any group, like event group, if you want to mention, then you can mention like a group here, which is like a DDL server level events like we have mentioned here. Or else if you want to mention a particular command, the DDL command you want to mention, then you can mention those commands as well, right? It can be anything as in the form of DDL commands or event group. Okay, so that is there, and after that we will write the body of the trigger. Now within the body of the trigger, the first thing we are just mentioning over here in this example is we are trying to showcase the scope of the trigger to the administrative person, whoever be there, like database administrator may be managing this, or maybe somebody from the support team, the tech support team person, or maybe like a senior developer, whoever is just supporting the applications or the database, right? So those all people will have an access to this. So those people will get notified on such kind of an event notification. Okay, so there are number of ways you can implement this logic. For simplicity, I have just mentioned all this trigger body in the form of just simple select as a return. But in the form of raising the event, you can also write as if like a raise error. Okay, that also you can mention in the form of raise error also you can mention, or else you can insert it into the table. You can create a table and then insert this event data into the table, and then return the provide that details to the DBA person. So it will be handy for them, like at what point of time, how many users and what all users have raised what all commands against the database, right? So those all will be traced in under that. So that is the purpose for that. So now let us just understand why and what we are using here, right? So this is the scope of for the scope purpose, like the trigger scope purpose, we have declared this variable. Then for the DDL command, and then this is for the event data. Now event data, what you see here, right? That is a system function. What this function does is, at a particular event, the server keeps running this kind of background services, and that service is providing us the event data kind of functionality to us. What this event data will do is, it will provide us the particular informations regarding the T-SQL command that we are running against the server. This is the scope to that we are hard coding for now for the user to understand. And then if you want to see to the entire data of the event, when you run that particular DDL command, right, what kind of information is getting logged, right? Those all information gets logged under this function, or with the help of this function you can get those information. So now what we have written up over here is event data function dot value, means there is a this function. What this function does is it creates an XML in the backend. Okay, now within that backend there is a XML gets formed. Now out of that XML elements, if you want to retrieve a particular command text kind of the element, right? So to retrieve that, this is say like a root element. Okay, now this is, if you understand the XML structure, right, you may easily understand. Let me give you an example after running this, so it will be very easy for you to understand. Okay, let me just run this command. Okay, all right, so this is run, and now let us just see first of all, when you create this trigger, where can you go and see whether the trigger is created or not? There is a trigger, the catalog view trigger for the server side is available, which is select star from sys.server underscore triggers. Now where this trigger, the trigger that you created, right, that trigger, if you want to see where it will be located, right? So if you want to see to that, you need to go where? In the SSMS, you need to go to the server objects. Now let us open up this, right? And then open up the server objects. Okay, this is the server object, and under the triggers you should see DDL trigger server scope, what we just created, right, with this particular name of the trigger. This is DDL trigger and the trigger name. Let's just refresh. Okay, so this is what you may find as a server level trigger. Now you understood like where it is located, or where you need to go and look whether the trigger is created. If you want to create the script of the trigger, you can create the script of it also. If you want to disable the trigger, then also you can disable, right? And if you want to delete, you can delete according to that. Now let us just do the testing of it, how this trigger gets raised. So let's just run this command. Okay, now understand that we have selected this database called master. There is no particular database that we have. Why? Because we are creating the database here. Okay, so we are creating the database and running this command called create database testdb, and on execution of this command will be run onto which server? On my local server, because everything like is installed in my local. But in your case, maybe remote server, maybe their virtual system, whichever server you are connecting to, right? So that server info you need to connect here, so that you can see to that like the database is created. Okay, so let us just run. So first of all, let me run this now. Yeah, if it says like database testdb already exists, choose a different database, meaning that database is already present. Let us just try with some different database name. So we will create this database. All right, now as you see, this is a kind of a database that we just created. Now what kind of scope the trigger has, right? The trigger has the scope of server level, which is what we mentioned in our trigger. Then it is showing us the command which we have run against the server. So that command also it will list down. Now, how did we retrieve this command? Is using this syntax, or using this format. Okay, so now I'll tell you how to retrieve that particular command from the XML document. And now what is the third argument here? In the third argument, we are storing the entire event data, meaning event data is in the form of XML. For that reason, we are assigning it to the XML variable. Okay, but by default, if you assign this variable, so it will be displayed in a short format here, like so. If you want to see to that, just click on it. So you will be able to see to this text entirely. Let us just copy here from here and then paste it here, so you will understand easily. All right, now here if you want to understand what is the root event instance, right? This is the root to this XML which is generated. So this is the event instance. Then what comes? T-SQL command. T-SQL command is where? Here, right? It is under the event instance. So now we want to go up to this level, this level element, and under that element there is one more element called command text. So there are two more elements under the T-SQL command. So we want the information from command text where the actual command is located, right? So this is how we can retrieve the information from this XML data which is generated by the event function with this event data function. Now let's say we retrieve this entire information. Now login name. Suppose say you wanted to retrieve a login, like which login, I mean which user has raised this command, right? So how can you retrieve that? You can retrieve that using let me just put in like here and put this variable as login user equals to, or say like login name, okay, not the user, login name equals to, and we need to declare the variable for that, right? So let's just declare variable for that, login name, and the type we will say like nvarchar, maybe 20 character would be fine, right? So let's just put in this variable over here and then try to retrieve this information from the event data function. So how can we retrieve that? You see this way. We will put in this event data value, then put the first element which is this event instance. Then what we want, because below this root element we directly have this login name, right? We need not to go below one level to that, right? We just need to reach up to this level, and instead of this T-SQL command we just have to write like login name, right? And then the first is what, like the first element of that is what you want to retrieve, and what you want to typecast it into nvarchar 20, right? So that will give you the value of the login name into this variable, and that is what we will be able to retrieve in the output here. Okay, so just let me put after this, okay, as the login name. Okay, so let us just, for now, let us just remove it for now. Okay. So we just removed it, and then we again want to alter this, right? Because we just created it and we want to give a comma over here. So let us just recreate or alter this trigger. Okay, it has got created. Now since this is there, right? Now as we saw that the database is already created, so we do not want to run the same command. Instead we want to run the different command, say like a drop database. We want to drop the database called testdb2. Now let us just run to see who has run this command and everything, that we will be able to see. Oh, okay. So let me just use this master database first, right? And remove if there is any references, nothing like that, right? So just run this drop database once again. Or maybe we can just try using some other instead of master in case if it is being used that way. Let me just stop it and then try to use any other databases like LearningDB or something, right? We already have it, so that it won't conflict with that. Okay, so now it is using the LearningDB, and now we try to run this. Okay, so let us just run this. No, I think it's not working. So okay, yeah, because it says like it is being used. So in such case, what you can do is you can manually go and remove the particular database from here as well. Okay, so go to here, refresh the databases. Okay, and say like you want to remove this, right? You let us just remove it from here and then select this option, close existing connection to that, right? So you remove that. Okay, now let us just run this command called create for that. Okay, so it will raise the event for that. Yeah, so like in here you saw that, right? Like we got this login name details over here. So this is how, you know, like the server administrator or whoever be the person managing the server, he will come to know that which like which user, right? Even in this XML that we just saw, right, it also shows us like from which server, I mean on which server this particular login has raised it and against which database it has been run, right? All of that, and even the event type also you can know, like it was the event called create database. That kind of an event is raised and what kind of command it has run, that person has run, right? All of these details are there in this XML. So any of these details you need, then you can retrieve from this event data with the help of event data function. Okay, so hope it is making sense now. Now, if you want to see, we have created all of this database. Now, if you want to remove it, how can you do that? To just say like a rolling back of the trigger, we are just reverting the code which we just executed. Okay, so we are removing the trigger. The trigger is removed now. Now, if you see, if I run this drop command against the particular database, it will immediately execute without any difficulty. Let us just see. See, it has got removed immediately because it is no longer in use. At the same time, there is no trigger applied onto it. So it has run directly without asking, without checking whether am I the authenticated, authorized user to the system or not. It has just run, since considering or as long as I have an access to the system, right? Now, let us just understand the other type of trigger. What the other type is? Database scope trigger. Now, in this kind of trigger, what is happening? This kind of triggers are like stored as an object in the respective database where they are created. It can also be saved under the master database. So, understand, first of all, these are the database scope trigger. So ideally they should be or they will be located under a particular database because it's a database specific event, right? You executed the command against the database, not the server entirety. So for that reason, we are just selecting a particular database and then we are trying to create the trigger under that, and we will implement this trigger for a particular DDL database level events. The rest syntax are same. These two keyword here will get changed. Instead of on all server, here we will write on database only. And here the keyword will get changed for DDL database level events. Earlier it was DDL server level events, whereas now it is DDL database level events. So that you can find out in our documentation from the previous documentation that I showed you, right? So I'll share the link so you can go from that and use the particular command and then create the and practice this trigger. Okay. So now rest of the things are very same. I am not changing anything under this. Okay. So I'll keep the same information and just try to run this command and show you how it is like the database trigger gets created. Okay, so the database trigger is sorry okay, my bad. Let me select this database and then run this because it was created in the master database. I wanted to create under the learning DB. Okay, so now it is created under learning DB. Now if I want to see whether my trigger is present under that or not. How can I check? This should not be there because since we just removed it, right? Now just refresh it. So trigger has gone at the server level. The trigger is wiped out. So now close that branch. Now where did we create this new trigger at the database level? We created it under learning DB. So let us go learning DB. Under learning DB, where to go? Under learning DB, go to the database, and under learning DB, go to the programmability. So go to the programmability, then check under the database triggers. That is where the new trigger that you just created will be located. Okay. So the same way we can create the script out of it. We can disable it. We can delete it if we want to, right? All three of this. So this is where you can check, and all of the database related activity like the learning DB related events, it will keep a trace of that. Okay. And then as and when the database level events gets raised or executed, or database level commands are executed, right? DDL commands are executed. At that point of time, it will raise this trigger, right? Now, earlier we saw that the server side triggers, the server level triggers can be viewed by the catalog view called server underscore triggers. But in the case of the database scoped trigger, how can we retrieve that? In the database scope trigger, we just have to write the keyword called triggers only. No system, no server level or nothing like server underscore, right? Just simple triggers, and run that against that to see like what kind of information it stores in that database for a particular trigger, right? The trigger name, then the object ID, the parent, if there is any, like it is created at the database level, and the type of this, the trigger is SQL trigger. The type will be TR, which is for trigger. Okay. Now let us just run the test code for that. Like we want to create a table called TBL test on this. So let's just run. So see, it has created the trigger message for us from the trigger that we have got, right? You can also display it as a print statement, like how I have implemented here. You can use it as a select statement. You can log it to a table. Whichever way you want to implement, you can implement that way. Okay. Or else you want to raise as an event, right? Raise as an error or something, that also you can do. Or maybe by database mail, if you want to send out to a DBA or to the respective person, that also you can do in this trigger only, right? Now, okay, now just reverting this code, whatever just we have created, this trigger code. So that's clear. And then if you run this command, it should not run that trigger, right? Because it is no longer in place. Okay. So that's it for the day. Thank you. Happy learning.